For those of you who went to bed early last night and are just now tuning in, James Bragg clinched the presidency by a landslide, winning 349 Electoral College votes to Gore's 189. Bragg emerged on the national stage in 1982 when he rode Ronald Reagan's coattails to become the governor of Idaho. Ellen Wilson picked him as her vice presidential running mate in 1992. While the two worked well together in the early years of Wilson's administration, her 1995 public admission of homosexuality led to an acrimonious split. Bragg then spent years in the political wilderness after his failed bid to win the Republican Party's nomination in 1996. When Al Gore was elected president in 2000, Bragg became a fixture on cable news, relentlessly hammering Gore's liberal policies and mismanagement of the space program. Still, Bragg seemed to gain little traction with the public. It was Al Gore himself who handed Bragg a path to redemption. Bragg's campaign flooded the airwaves in battleground states with ads that accused Gore of losing Goldilocks, along with its promise of an era of unprecedented prosperity for the American people. Bragg closed the sale late last night. At 2:18 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Al Gore conceded the election before an emotional gathering of his followers in Nashville.
In a stunning development, North Korea has announced it will establish its own base on Mars, separate and independent from the M6 facilities in Happy Valley. The DPRK claims the new base will be a research station, but intelligence agencies for the M6 nations are on edge, wondering about the North Koreans' true intentions. Initially, the new base will consist of 2 abandoned modules that the North Koreans commandeered. The country's National Aerospace Technology Administration, or NATA, refuses to disclose where they plan to locate the new base, and further details about its purpose remain shrouded in secrecy. Relations between North Korea and the M6 alliance remain bitter in the aftermath of riots on Mars and the theft of 2003 LC, popularly known as the Goldilocks asteroid. A year ago, North Korea was expelled from what was then known as the M7 because of accusations that the Koreans helped the Happy Valley conspirators steal Goldilocks and gave them sanctuary. North Korea vehemently denied the charges, but the other member nations were not convinced. The friction was made worse by the defections of several North Korean eugenauts, including the first man to land on the Red Planet, Lee Jung-gil, once regarded as a national hero in his homeland. Lee was given asylum in Happy Valley.
When President Bragg appointed Paul Bremer, a State Department diplomat, to serve as the M6's first governor on Mars, he said, "Paul is a man of enormous experience, a person who knows how to get things done." Since he arrived on Mars, Bremer has lived up to that reputation. At a news conference today, Bremer announced the arrival of the Mars Peacekeepers, the first professional law enforcement body to serve in Happy Valley. Unlike the undercover intelligence agents whose abuses sparked a riot several years ago, Bremer argues that these new peacekeepers will forge strong ties with the community. They are here to serve the people of Happy Valley and to protect its citizens from further outbreaks of violence, said Bremer. Palmer James, the former executive officer of Happy Valley who served under Commander Daniel Poole, believes the riots were a wake-up call. No one wants that to happen again, which is why I resigned as XO and joined the Peacekeepers, said James. He will serve as Happy Valley's first sheriff. Those looking to help maintain safety and order in Happy Valley can apply to join the Mars Peacekeepers through local law enforcement offices.
Remember how our illustrious former President Al Gore promised us that the iridium from the Goldilocks asteroid would solve all our problems, end hunger, income inequality, and bring about everlasting world peace? Well, instead it has triggered a global realignment with the haves squaring off against the have-nots. Let's take a moment to review how we got here. The white smock crowd claims iridium will help us build faster transistors, taller buildings, longer bridges, bigger airplanes and rockets, and enable breakthroughs in medicine and energy consumption. But there's a fly in the ointment. There are 187 countries in the world that do not belong to the M6's elite club. Now, a group of countries has decided that they're mad as hell, and they are not going to take it anymore. They have formed a new alliance known as the Independent Spacefaring Nations, or ISIN. Its members include China, Brazil, Malaysia, Nigeria, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, and Thailand. These countries have burgeoning space programs that are rapidly achieving parity with the M6. ISIN vows that they will break the M6 stranglehold on iridium, increasing global access to the metal while lowering prices. But multiple Security Council resolutions objecting to the M6 monopoly have been passed, proposed, only to be vetoed by the permanent members of the Council like the United States, the USSR, France, and the United Kingdom. These countries also happen, surprise, surprise, to belong to the M6. Good luck, ISIN. You'll need it.
The fierce competition to land a contract to build a space elevator on Mars is over. The M6 shocked industry insiders by rejecting a bid from Helios Aerospace, which up until now has built more than 85% of the infrastructure on the Red Planet. Instead, the contract was awarded to Helios's main rival, the Russian aerospace firm Kuragin. Helios founder Dev Iyessa implied favoritism by the Soviet Union played a part in the deal. In a statement to the press, Iyessa noted, "It is no secret the Soviets have been pressuring the M6 to throw Mars contracts to Soviet oligarchs. Apparently, they succeeded." But Kuragin CEO Lev Bolkonsky brands Iyessa's comments as sour grapes. "He lost the bid because Helios's designs were inferior," said Bolkonsky. The space elevator will present a major test of the Russian firm's ability to deliver. Kuragin must build a tower nearly 182 meters tall to anchor a cable that will stretch about 23,000 kilometers above the surface of Mars to reach the Goldilocks asteroid. The iridium itself may be the key ingredient to success. The tether that will raise and lower the elevator will be reinforced with iridium nanotubes, making it far stronger than a tether made of braided steel. Corrigan and Helios are also competing elsewhere in our solar system. The two companies are feverishly building robotic probes that will travel to the moons of Saturn and Jupiter in search of extraterrestrial life forms that could revolutionize biotech and generate vast new revenue streams. It remains to be seen who will emerge victorious in that race.
The M6 base on Mars has taken another step toward becoming a full-fledged colony with the opening of its first school for the children of those who live and work on the Red Planet. Initially, the Happy Valley Institute of Education will serve approximately 12 students, ranging from kindergarten through 12th grade. Those numbers are expected to increase now that Helios Aerospace has finished construction of the base's radiation shielding. The shielding consists of 17 towers that rise 100 feet above Happy Valley. At the top of the towers are powerful electromagnets that create local magnetic fields which deflect solar radiation, protecting the humans below and allowing even young children to stay on Mars indefinitely without suffering negative effects from solar radiation. Previously, workers in Happy Valley were protected by more conventional means, such as modules located underground or with water pipe throughout the habitat walls. The Union of Concerned Scientists claimed those methods were inadequate and pointed to elevated cases of leukemia, thyroid, and bone cancer among Mars veterans, not to mention many astronauts and cosmonauts from the program's early years. Under pressure from experts as well as workers who wanted their families to join them on Mars, the M6 agreed to build the new system.
Today, the very first Pathfinder shuttle to roll off the assembly line was towed through the streets of Los Angeles past thousands of spectators to its new home, a museum in Exposition Park. This comes after NASA's recent announcement that they are retiring the Pathfinder class of spacecraft after 27 years of service. The legendary first Pathfinder will remain on permanent display at the Samuel Ocean Air and Space Center. Members of the public can walk along the 184-foot fuselage and tour the cargo bay. They'll even be able to sit in a replica pilot seat and grasp a stick like the one once held by legendary astronauts Sally Ride, Edward Baldwin, Norm Thagard, and Garrett Reisman. Pathfinder was designed to meet the national security needs of the Cold War at a time when the United States and the Soviet Union were competing for supremacy in the new frontier of space. After those dark days gave way to new alliances, Pathfinder continued to serve its country by deploying the Thomas Paine Telescope and hundreds of commercial and military satellites. Now its work is done, and the American shuttle fleet has become a part of aerospace history.
Undocumented workers. They provide cheap labor in underground economies around the world. They're often paid less and exposed to dangerous working conditions. In recent months, the problem has grown to epidemic proportions. Huge masses of people are crossing borders throughout the world. They're driven by the growing wealth disparity between the M6 nations and poverty-stricken countries that are unable to access cheap iridium. Suffering from hyperinflation and skyrocketing unemployment, many developing countries are unraveling. The situation has become so dire that undocumented workers have even become an issue on Mars. Refugees fleeing both economic hardship and political oppression have stowed away in pressurized cargo crates bound for the Red Planet. Veteran residents of Happy Valley call the undocumented immigrants craters after their means of transportation. The immigrants have moved into the base's sublevels vacated by legal residents years ago in favor of more modern modules on the surface. The migrants scrape out a living performing various odd jobs and off-the-books work for unscrupulous employers, bringing new meaning to the phrase underground economy. The newly appointed governor of Happy Valley, Leonid Polivanov, says he is aware of the situation but cannot address it until the countries of origin agree to accept their former citizens. Until such agreements are negotiated, the refugees remain in a legal gray zone, rendering them, in effect, people without a country.
It's been 3 weeks since protesters occupied Zuccotti Park in Manhattan's financial district to protest M6 policies governing the iridium trade. Now, demonstrations are breaking out in other cities like Mumbai, Chicago, Moscow, Seattle, and Paris. So what are all these protests about? It all starts and ends with iridium, folks. That magical ore that transformed the economies of the M6 countries and financed the greatest financial boom in human history. There's just one little kink. Surprise, surprise. The boom is only benefiting a few. Massive spending on Mars infrastructure by the M6 has led to massive inflation here on Earth. And middle-class wage gains have failed to keep up with skyrocketing prices. And then there are the many countries who do not belong to the M6. They were forced to take out loans from the big investment banks to buy M6 iridium at inflated prices. 6 months ago, those countries began to default on their loans, which in turn dragged down the big banks and triggered the recent stock market crash. Now even the good old USA is feeling the pain of a major recession that iridium was supposed to prevent. It turns out the only ones getting rich off iridium are oligarchs like Deva Yesa, chairman of Helios Aerospace, and Lev Bolkonsky, CEO of Kurgan Corporation. They are reaping trillions, and they're sharing the wealth with their corrupt politicians they keep in their pockets. Harsh medicine for all concerned, but particularly for those fresh-faced students leaving college with their shiny new business and liberal arts degrees. Their left-wing professors told them that this is all the M6's fault. The M6 should provide free iridium for all, and I don't think so. Many of those countries who want to buy iridium have their own space programs, and to them I say, stop whining. Go out and find some more. As for the college students, there's always vocational school. How about you learn a practical trade that someone might actually want to hire you for?